and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the DJ Force X podcast. I bring a very special guest to the show this week. I have Kristyn from the band Daedric. Welcome, Kristyn.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
No worries at all. Sorry, there's no like fanfare in the background or anything. Me and
No
you
worries.
in a very silent studio here, and yes, it's all good. But how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, good. Just got back from work, so I'm just sort of kind of on a relaxation thing now because I've got a day off tomorrow. So
You have to decompress a little bit.
a
I get it.
little bit. I got some. I had a bit of time between this and that, so that's all good. But yeah, no. Obviously, we're here to talk about Daedric, your band, and you've had a couple of singles come out, and you've got a new album due out as well, which we'll talk about in a moment. I can't talk about it in great depth. Um, the powers that be attempted to send me the album, but it was locked behind a password, which
Oh,
wasn't provided, unfortunately. So
oh man.
I've only really heard the singles, so we're gonna start with that anyway. But obviously, it gives me a bit more excitement towards the album as well. So,
Okay. Yeah.
um, but first of all, what I'd like to do, because I think I've had pretty much the entire roster of FiXT on this show in the past, and I like to get a little bit of their origin stories, like how you sort of came to be Daedric and everything like that. But yeah, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit into that kind of like origin story, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was the end of 2020 when Jeff Rockwell, messaged me on Facebook with this long spiel about, I have this idea for you. And at first I was kind of like, I don't know this person. And then Clay, the other producer, was like, you know what, like I've heard of Jeff Rockwell. This sounds like something we should at least check out. So we go over and we meet him, and he pitches the idea of this like dark synth pop, like industrial sound. And, me just wanting to do art, I was like, yeah, sounds great. I'll do it. And so we just kind of dove into it and we wrote Wretched together. And that was an interesting process because the whole idea was to build this sort of like aesthetic and the song and like make the whole music video and then pitch it to Fix and say, are you interested in this? So we went through the whole thing of doing a photo shoot, a music video, finishing the song, having, all the artwork ready for it and then pitched it to Fixed. And from there, they seemed pretty excited. So we ended up signing with them, and we didn't release Wretched until the next year. So almost a whole year later after writing it, we released it August of 2021, and that kind of, launched Daedric officially. And from there was, we wrote singles and then kind of created the album Mortal out of those singles. And then, obviously we're now into our sophomore album.
No, that's really cool. I mean, you like out of all the sort of like FiXT artists, there's a couple of them I know a lot about, and a lot of the alumni ones as well. I know quite a lot because a couple of them were based in England. So I sort of got to know a lot of those. I knew them sort of before they started. Anyway, and I was like thinking about it. I was like, I don't know much about you. I've heard the music,
Yeah,
but I haven't really heard any. Normally I'd look out and find stories or just where you're at. But
absolutely.
you kind of came out of this like say like with those singles. Was it Wretched and Sepultura?
Sepulcher, yeah. Yeah, I I
Sorry,
regret naming it that. Everyone struggles with it, and I'm like,
I knew
I'm
I'd
so
struggle with
sorry.
something. Um, and then Dawnbreaker as well.
hmm
There's a couple other songs. Obviously, there's been a whole host of singles. People can go listen to them. There's an album, like you mentioned. People can
Yeah.
listen to that. And they can stop this and go listen to that on Spotify. If they're on Spotify watching this, go just line it up next. And yeah, no, and I was like, I don't know anything about them. Like obviously I saw your website, you got a little bit about you, a couple of producers, yourself, kind of got together. But yeah, no, it was quite a nice little mystery for me to kind of like go through and find some stuff. But obviously I'd heard your music over the years. I've been associated with FiXT for a long time. And I am very fortunate to get sent pretty much, well, I get sent everything that they release.
That's
So
awesome.
the sort of weekly releases I get sent, I get like streams of forthcoming albums. Not in your case. They tried, uh, um, but but we kind of hit a barrier there. But it's I will get it and I will listen to it and like listen to like Fight the Fade and uh oh God, well, I'm really blanking on other names right now.
That's okay.
But yeah, other fixed artists. There are a plethora of them. So people can go listen to them as well. But I've had them all on the show as well. And I was like, I always knew you guys were there because I'd get the songs. But like whenever I'd put like requests in for like just into I send them interview slots and they kind of go to you and everyone else, see who's available. Um, yeah, you'd not come up till now, which is kind of cool because it's like it's been a long time coming. It's been a few years
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that front.
Yeah.
But no, I really enjoy your music. Like going
Thank
back
you.
to that first album, it's one of those like um it's really dark. Like you say, it's that dark synth pop, like throughout the kind of like more, but it's got that kind of you've got a metallic edge to it as well, like a real aggressive edge,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. I mean, I don't know where you get that voice from, but it just goes
The depths of hell,
yeah,
just
yeah.
casual demonic possession. I don't, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And no, and it's fantastic. And obviously this new like bunch of music that you're kind of going through now. You started I'm assuming it was the ones that came out was it 2024 you started releasing the singles for this next album?
It started this year. It
Oh, so the
was
2025
and
releases.
I think it was May. Yeah, May
So
was when we started this
Forbidden?
cycle.
Was that with Forbidden?
Oh no.
Okay.
The first single off the album was Night Mother.
Night Mother. Okay, so I know where we're at now because there's a couple of tracks she released
Yeah.
in
Yeah, we
2020.
had some collab tracks
That's it.
that we had finished end of last year that we slated before the album.
Yeah.
That way we didn't have,
That
a
one
huge
with
gap or
Silent
anything.
Theory.
Yeah, yeah. That was fun. That was
Yeah.
a fun one.
That was a great track. But yeah, like, so you've released two tracks off this forthcoming album.
Hmm.
I think I can name the album as The Light Left,
Yeah,
is what it's called.
correct. Hmm.
The pre-order is launching on July 18th.
Yes,
I
that's
think
correct.
I can announce that as well.
That's okay. By the time it comes out, it's fine.
Yeah, no, I was just like, this is the information that was given to me. So I'm assuming that there was no embargo on that information. So I'm like, let's just go with it. This is fun. Oh,
Yeah.
knock my microphone out of the way. But yeah, no, Night Mother that's a heck of a track.
Thank you.
I really love that, and Alien Skin as well.
Hmm.
I mean, those two.
Yeah, those are some of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I really love. I would have loved to have talked about the full album, and I'll stop going on about it. But like those two tracks really set up, and I went back and I listened to like Forbidden, Dead by Dawn, Racing in Parallel as well. Just because I thought they might be included in the album, but like the sort of evolution of your tracks, I mean, going all the way back to Wretched, is fantastic. I mean, you came out the gates with Wretched, and the production on that is great. Like
Yeah, yeah, they did such a
first
great job
track.
on that.
And you've kind of kept that going throughout the singles, and a lot, like you say, you've done a lot of collaborations as well with like the Annex, Fight the Fade, like we mentioned earlier. And yeah, I mean, Silent Theory, that's the most recent one. And how did that come about?
They actually reached out to FiXT, I believe, and then FiXT was like, are you interested in this? And of course we were because they're a heck of a band. So it's a great opportunity, and they actually let us select the track to do the remix for, and so that was the one that stood out most to me, and it was just smooth sailing.
Nice. No, I mean that's good. I mean it's quite it's like I say, people go listen to it now. It's quite the track. And it is and Silent Theory are a fantastic band in themselves.
Yeah,
Well,
they really are.
um, but yeah, and you guys were out on tour for a bit as well.
Yes, we
Um,
had our first tour. It was more of a short run. I wouldn't call it a full tour. It was at the end of Tesseract's War Being tour, so it was their last West Coast run,
yeah,
and they invited us to be part of that.
nice. How did you feel you went down in that tour? Because I know Tesseract quite well. Obviously, they're a
Hmm.
British band.
Yeah.
And I know one of them a bit better than the rest of them just purely from my previous exploits. But no, how did that go down? Like, how was that like? I mean, how was it like to be on the live stage on that tour as well?
I mean, it was incredible. It was more than I thought it was going to be. Not like I didn't think less of it. It was more than I had imagined because, I could imagine certain aspects of it, and I knew that it was going to help, me learn a lot of things and just, you know, grow from there. But it was just awesome to be able to meet them, to share the stage with them, to playing with those crowds, and the crowds were just incredible. I met so many people along the way. Some for the first time they hadn't heard of us, and so getting to chat with them was
Yeah.
really really cool.
I say it's quite the tour to be thrown in on. I mean, Tesseract here, they play huge venues, like
Yeah.
almost arena. So, well, they're on the cusp of arena size, I would say.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and I don't know what their reaction or the size of them are over in the States. Um, but the amount of talent in that band is ridiculous.
It really is. It
Quite
was,
intimidating in some respects.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I really loved being able to just sit and listen to them every night. Sometimes some side stage, sometimes I go up on if there's a balcony or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It was just it never got old for me, and it was cool to just watch them do their thing.
So did you get that touring bug or that gigging bug from this?
I would say so. I wouldn't want to do this every single day of the year, but I would say a good chunk of it, because there's so much to do on tour. There's so much to just like develop yourself and develop, your stage presence, develop, the way that you perform, and just there's so much to it, and it's a lot of fun. It is it's also tough. Like obviously, you're not living in your house and things like that, but for me, it was worth it because just everything that came out of that, from meeting the people to understanding what people want from merch or understanding, what kinds of things like make people excited when you're on the stage and all of that was just really cool to just soak in. I felt like a little sponge,
Oh,
soaking in all the energy.
that's exactly. I mean, I I consult with bands of a small size, and I don't do it for like any money really, but I always say like when you do go out on these things, when you are watch these bands, soak in what you can from the sort of like if you are supporting a touring act, like watch how their stage presence like
Yes.
electrifies the crowd. It's like because a lot of like bands starting out or smaller younger bands, they obviously they struggle in finding out what they need to do. um,
Hmm.
I don't like to sort of like order them. You must look at the crowd. You must look, here. But like you've got to be able to kind of like look away from your instrument for a bit. You've got to look at like with a like I was a vocalist at one point, and turning your back on the crowd is very easy,
Yeah.
and like facing the drummer. And like if you're having a moment with the drummer, that's fine. But I like at one point I found myself like doing that a lot, and because
Oh.
I faced the crowd, and that's how I sort of learned a lot of the stuff. Because then I toured for many years at that point,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was just sort of like I've learned all these things that I'm passing on to bands, and what you're doing when you get these opportunities. I always say to them, when you get the opportunity, don't just go and play, go and watch. Like
Yeah,
watch these bands do what they do because they will. You will learn from their stage, like what they do on stage,
absolutely. Yeah.
whether it's like a uniform jump, whether it's how they keep their eyes, on the back of the room, or, how they stay facing the crowd, how they interact with the crowd, all that. And after a while, it becomes natural. That's the key.
Hmm.
It's that, like, it's like anything, it's like building that habit. Um, but yeah, I mean, you got like a good, like, say a masterclass from Tesseract on that front.
Yeah,
Yeah, phenomenal.
definitely.
Um, do you have any like more plans for tours coming up, or are you just kind of waiting for this album to kind of um sort of more tracks to come out for this album and everything like that?
So we have one. I'm not allowed to officially announce it yet, so I can't tell you, but there is a big one. I'm just gonna say that it's big and it is sooner than I anticipated, which is both, hectic but also just really exciting.
It's amazing. And it's great to see, like I've said this to a couple of the fixed artists. It's great to see a touring fixed artist.
Yeah.
Because I mean there are more now, which is great. Like they've got in like obviously like the Browning and the Defects, obviously their husband and wife. But they've got obviously you guys as well can go out and play. A couple of the alumni bands that they had, like Seething and Cure, I'm wearing their bloody merch here. Uh,
Oh.
um, and like Toronto's Broken started to go out on tour as well, and not just playing like sort of like he's playing like a hybrid DJ set, which is kind of cool.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
that's really cool.
and yeah, just like because like before they had a bunch of like producers, which they still do. Obviously, Clayton he owns the whole shebang, and I blame him completely. Um, so I've had him on the show a couple times, and James as well. But and being able to see these bands play, so going out to see obviously seeing Care I knew before they signed to them, so I'd seen them live, but the opportunity to see Toronto's Broken's come up a couple of times, and obviously the Browning are coming over here as well, um, and stuff like that. And it's just nice to have that, like, to see some of these bands. I buy, I buy the music as well. I've got vinyl in here somewhere of
Oh, that's so cool.
various bands. So, it's nice to actually like speak to another sort of touring, like, fixed band. And obviously my next question would be, would you like to come over to Europe and play? Is that a game for you guys? Or is it kind of like you're sticking kind of like obviously sticking US now because obviously you're still building your thing.
Yeah.
Would Europe be a goal?
I think Europe is the obvious next step. Once we get, our sea legs, you could say. And it's always been a dream of mine to tour Europe. Specifically, I've always wanted to go to the UK. Just personally, I've always wanted to go to the UK. And so I'm excited for any opportunity to go over there. And obviously, it would need to make sense, but I think that would be a goal of any band is to tour Europe because
Yeah.
from what I've heard, everyone that plays shows over there, they're like it's so much different than here. It's not hard to get people to show up because they're so excited about there's something happening in my small town or my part of the world, and they just fill up the room. Even if it's a small room, it's still awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, especially with bands that do come over from, the States, you're traveling thousands of miles to come here. So you're sort of like if you've got a group of UK fans, then they will make the effort to see you because you're coming over to this country. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it great because it's more of it is very much a community thing. Depending on, obviously what venues you play, that depends on what, whatever the situation is at that point. But um knowing the sort of UK scene as I do, the American bands or American groups are very well received. I don't think I've been to one that's kind of released something and then played in front of no one, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, and yeah, no, it's great. And obviously vice versa. I used to live in the States, so I know what it's like there as well. And it is very different, but it's kind of cool in the States as well, from my perspective of seeing obviously national acts going through, but then promoters are stacking the support slots with local acts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fantastic because here they kind of do that here, but the scene's kind of up and down sometimes depending on when you're, whatever genre you're in. But the one thing I noticed whilst I was living in Tampa, Florida, but the one thing I noticed about the shows being put on locally that these like what I would say were big bands, they come over to the UK, they're playing huge venues, but they're playing like tiny 500 capacity venues here in the States. But here they're playing like 2,000 capacity or 3,000. It's very strange. But seeing them
Wow.
in that tiny, tiny stage, but then they've stacked it with local bands as well. So you get to like find out about the local bands.
Yeah.
And then when they have a show, it entices you more to go to those as well. Um, but yeah, that's like obviously difference in crowd, difference in expectation, stuff like that, and how the venues work. But no, I mean, yeah, playing over here in UK and Europe is like Europe's a very different experience as well from the UK, which is weird in itself. But having played those areas myself, it's yeah, there is that kind of like in Europe, like mainland Europe, you've got a lot of people that just go out for a night out and come out and not know who you are, but they'll have a damn good time finding out and discovering. Like when I played there was a lot of times we didn't know you guys were playing. We never heard of you guys before, but we just come out and we go to these venues and we see these bands and and you've made a fan, which
That's so cool.
is awesome. So hopefully you'll get that opportunity at some point
Yeah.
soon.
Absolutely.
I mean that's the plan, isn't it?
Mhm.
But I've got a couple of questions left for you, if I may,
Okay.
and then I'll let you get on with the rest of your day. Um, Actually, whereabouts in the States are you, out of interest?
I'm in Texas.
Oh, okay, cool.
Can you tell by my accent?
A little bit. I was gonna say, but I didn't want to. I don't like to assume. I don't like to assume. I've been tripped up many times. Even when I lived there, they thought I was Australian. So
Oh,
yeah,
well, that's the ignorance of Americans.
it's all right. It's fine. I got used to it after a while, and I started using sort of Australian kind of uh
Like shrimp on the body.
kind of like that, but like just sort of like general mannerisms and stuff like that, just to kind of throw people off. Uh,
Oh my gosh.
but it's all good. It's all fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, my final sort of like my last questions for you. What I'd like to find out is it's a bit more of a discovery about yourself and music and things. But I want to get your three most pivotal records in your life, or tracks, or albums, or whatever. But not necessarily your favorite ones, is what I'm going for. I'm going for the
Hmm.
ones that kind of like the one that made you want to be a singer, the one that
Ooh.
made you want to be in a band, or something else in your life that it kind of like you heard this album and it just changed you, or heard this track, like what singular, it can be a singular track as well.
Oh, that's a good question. It would, if you ask me this question in a different day, I'm sure I'll give you a different answer.
That's what I like
Um,
about this question. It kind of does do different things. So, but yeah.
I would say one of the ones that I go back to and I've been listening to for, a long, long time is Trilogy by The Weeknd.
Oh,
Just
nice.
the
Yeah.
the way that he wrote for that album was just so artistic and still raw and emotional, but so just beautiful. And that's not something you hear in his later music, like obviously with the pop stuff taking over, it's more of this catchy, catchy fast. And that back then, he wasn't, I don't even think he was signed yet when he did that one. And so like that one was one for me that I go back to.
Nice.
I would say another one. This makes me want to just open up my Spotify and look in there. Man, that's hard. It's like suddenly I don't listen to any music at all.
No,
Uh,
just to sort of like trigger it. I mean, was it like anything when you were younger that made you? I mean, what was the reason you became a singer? What was that kind of like that? What did you hear, or was it more you were influenced into that side of things, or was like you heard like an artist and you're like, I want to be that person.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. I will say growing up, I grew up in a very strict household where I was only allowed to listen to hymns and classical music.
Okay.
And so that's all I knew growing up until my mom snuck in a Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey CD. And I remember her showing that to me, and I was like, this is the best sounding like voices I've ever heard. And so I would learn them and sing them in the bathroom when nobody was home. So that was like, in terms of singing, that was like my inspiration,
Nice.
um, were those two. And then I remember hearing Michael Jackson for the first time and just being, I didn't know if it was a guy or a girl at the time because my exposure to music was just so limited and I wasn't sure, but I remember it just being really cool, like how quick his riffs were and like everything about his agility was just very, like it's something I hadn't heard because, obviously only listening to Mariah and Whitney was a very different feeling.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was different. And then it was right around when I turned 16, I heard rock music for the first time on the
Yeah.
radio
Yeah.
at school.
I was gonna ask where
And
did the rock thing come from out of that.
yeah, it was actually the song "Never Too Late" by 30 Days Grace that I heard on in my art class, and I remember my ears perked up, and I was like, "What is this?" And it was shortly after then that I bought my first laptop, and I got into torrenting and pirating music.
We're all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. So I was living the LimeWire life,
Yep.
and I started with the ones that I heard, and then from there I would just find recommendations or similar things that the like Cedars were putting out there. So then I would just download everything, and so I had this massive library of not only rock music, but then I had things like Seosin of Mice and Men, Asking Alexandria from the era of Stand Up and Scream. And those caught my attention. And so I was starting to listen to metal slowly as I kind of dove in. And at first, it was a little bit hard to pick out like what I liked. But then, I found ones that were catchy to my ears. And those are the ones that really like stayed with me.
Nice. Nice. That's good. I mean, I love the sort of the evolution of that. Obviously, the weekend, most people know him from the sort of like the main sort of hits that he's had recently. But going back to I've got a friend who's a massive, massive weekend fan, like obsessive, obsessive.
Yeah.
And yeah, he goes on about this all the time, like how it was very different from now. And like, he loves the stuff now, but he loves the stuff from then. And
Yeah. It's like two different artists. And that's okay. I
yeah,
know everyone evolves.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And obviously the Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, I mean, what a pair of voices to kind of like mold yourself on. Like that those both those artists are like just when it comes to like vocally phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
there's no they'll go obviously they go down in history as possibly probably the best female art vocalists in like sort of mainstream pop and R&B and everything like that. Along those lines. And obviously Michael Jackson, legendary. Some of those albums are literally timeless. You could listen to them now and you think that was produced yesterday.
Yeah.
And you're like with his voice being as high as it is, yeah, there is that element of like, is that female? Is that male? But listening to him in the Jackson 5 and listening to him later on, there was not really much of a difference in the tone of the voice, which is
Yeah.
I don't know if that's scary or if that's just the way it is. Uh,
It's talent.
it's exactly. Because a lot of people over time, their voices will go and they'll have to go down and down like an
Hmm.
octave to kind of like, but obviously up until the end, but he was still, I mean, he was rehearsing at the end for this big London thing that was supposed to happen. But some of the videos that came out of that, you could hear his voice was still on.
Yeah.
His body wasn't great, but his voice was just still there, which was great. And yeah, 3 Days Grace. It's a good little segue into rock right there. And then hearing things like, like you're saying, asking Alexandria and of Mice and Men and stuff like that. Just sort of going through the sort of like emo metal side of things that was kind of around then.
Like a
Um,
rite of passage.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And these are great gateway bands. It's because like I mean, my main thing is heavy music. Like I do love my electronic music. I love my like drum and bass. I'm a DJ. These turntables are real behind me. They're not fake.
Nice.
It's not a fake background. I can turn around and touch those and they'd be doing everything. Um and and but I love like R&B and disco and stuff as well because like with the vinyl DJing it's sort of that's the basis of it. A lot of the sort of like scratch DJing I do, the basis of the breaks and the bass lines and all that kind of stuff that come out of that are from that genre, and it's what formed hip hop as well. It came out of that, those things.
Yeah.
um but yeah, and it's like I always love to see people's gateways. Like a lot of the time, see, obviously you being female, I always like a lot of ones that I've spoken to are very much like Avril Lavigne, and those were there, and like Alanis Morissette and things like that, where they're kind of like break into rock music. But it's great to hear that you had that kind of like pop R&B background, and then you heard like you went through that deep dive, I would say, because they're not. I
Yeah.
mean, they are kind of your standard. No, they're not your standard emo. Screamo, wasn't it? More than that. I've
At the
had
time, I think it was a mix of scene and scream. Screamo was the
yeah,
term back
that was the
then.
term they used.
Yeah.
But I've had of Mice and Men on the show before as well, which was great.
Oh, that's so cool.
And yeah, because they released an album, I think it was it last year or the year before? But I had the drummer on the show. But yeah, it was and it's so different from a lot of the others because normally I hear Linkin Park. Normally I hear like those sort of those mainstream bands, if you will, mainstream rock. But no, that's really cool, and you can kind of hear it in the music as well, especially with the stand up and scream side of things with the sort of electronic element. And then there was the remixed album they did with that as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I don't know if you heard. I think Clayton did Cell Dollar did a remix on that as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
On the because they released a remix version of Stand Up and Scream, I believe. I believe Cell Dweller is one of the
Oh,
mixes on that. I'll have to fact check that, but
yeah.
right now. Uh, but you can do that. You can go listen to it and see if it was any good. But yeah, no, I mean, I love that crossover sound of rock and metal and electronic music as well. My DJ sets are generally predominantly like metal, drum and bass kind of thing, but I do venture into dubstep and sort of hardcore and all that kind of stuff as well.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so I try to sort of keep on the tip of that if I can. But yeah, my final question for you, Kristen, is what are your hobbies away from this? So when you're not doing Daedric, when you're not producing music for anything else, if you do any other music production or anything else, what other things do you do? What are your other sort of passions?
So I would call myself an artist through and through. So I do everything from dance to art itself. Like, I started off as a visual artist actually before I got into music.
Okay,
And it's actually, my full-time job. I'm a graphic designer and I do things like website builds and stuff like that. So everything visual and creative is basically what I do.
nice. Excellent. Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, having that entire arsenal ready to go. So obviously you can produce this music, but then you've got the focus of how you want it to look, how you want
Yeah,
it to play out in video, if you will, or even in stills with the artwork for the albums and the singles and all that kind of stuff.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I love that because you have the control over it as well. Like a lot of artists, I don't control. Yeah, control. A lot of artists are control. Let's go with that.
Yeah,
I know I was. It's fine. Um,
that's
but,
okay.
but having the talent to actually do that sort of stuff, because a lot of times I had to ask other people. I still do have to ask other people to do stuff. Like I have a certain vision, but I can't produce it myself. I don't have that.
Right.
I don't have that talent. But I know how I want it to look. But it's obviously it's going to be through someone else's hands, eyes, etc. But from my words, if you will. But yeah, no, I've always kind of wanted to, but I've never been able to kind of, I wouldn't say master it, but be happy with what I've done on that front. I mean, I've written a couple of music videos and stuff like that in the past. But yeah, just sort of, having that kind of like, it being your sort of job as well. So you have to be very good at it. Um,
Yeah.
um,
I hope so.
yeah, sure, I'm sure it is. I mean, I've seen the artwork of a lot of your singles and stuff like that, and they are pretty striking. So, and your
Thank
music
you.
videos as well, actually, I should say, of which there are a few. People can go see them online on YouTube and whatnot. Um, but yeah, no, awesome. Kirsten, thank you very much, or Kristen, sorry.
It's okay.
Got it wrong at the end. But yeah, no, Kristen, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Good luck with the album. What is obviously the pre-launch is on the 18th of July. What is the release date of the album? Do we have that yet?
I believe mid-October.
Mid-October. So the pre-order is going to go on for a little bit, about a month, 2 months. So people have the opportunity to pre-order, obviously, the digital side of things. Do you know if you're going to be producing physical product?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
You're going to have CDs. You're going to have obviously you're going to have t-shirts and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
Do
of
you,
course.
are you on the thing of are you going to get vinyl?
Yes, that's something that was really important to us. After the demand for Immortals vinyl,
Yeah,
we decided to start that, already instead of waiting. So
nice.
that should be out around the same time, I believe, as the actual release.
Well, I'll be putting in a pre-order then because I like to get the fixed vinyl. Um,
Awesome.
it has to travel a long way, but nothing's broken yet, and I've had a few sent this way. So, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, no, I should get the. But anyone else, pre-order 18th of July. It'll be via Daedric. Daedric is it daedricmusic.com?
Daedricofficial.com.
DaedricOfficial.com, sorry. And obviously FiXT as well, FiXT.com as well. The pre-order will be live through that. And obviously your social channels, of which
Yes.
I can find you through on there. So, whatever your poison is when it comes to social media, people, you can find Daedric on there. Um, and follow them and then obviously listen to the music. It's the most important thing. Listen to that music. Because I like to encourage people to buy the physical product if they can. But if they can't, stream the heck out of it. Um,
The best way to support.
exactly, exactly. But no, Kristen, thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Hope you have a good rest of your day.
You
And
too.
like I said, good luck with the album. Hopefully, we'll get you back on at some point soon, maybe when the album's out, or maybe a little bit after that. Or
Definitely.
if
Yeah.
you suddenly release a tour dates for the UK, definitely we'll have you back on because obviously I'm UK based, but if that happens, awesome. But no, I'd like to have you back on again soon, just so we can talk about the album and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you.